On my wedding day, my mother-in-law publicly forced me to sign a shameless agreement demanding my entire dowry go to her family. And your parents' house? Our family gets to live there first. My parents were so furious, they tried to take me home right then and there. But for the sake of the husband I loved so deeply, I clenched my fists, grit my teeth, and signed my name anyway. But the very next morning, just as the first light of dawn broke, my mother-in-law's voice pierced my ears like a dagger. Get up! The rooster has already crowed 3 times, and you're still in bed? I opened my eyes, completely exhausted. The wedding guests that kept us up messing around until after midnight. I nudged my husband, Jianjun, who was sleeping right next to me, but he was still fast asleep. Outside, my mother-in-law pounded on the door twice. Did you hear me? Go feed the donkey first. Then light the stove and get breakfast ready. The whole family is waiting to eat. An in-law sleeping it on her very first day? If word gets out, you might not care about your reputation, but I care about mine. I swallowed my anger, threw on my clothes, and went outside. A scrucky-looking donkey was tied to the trough, shivering in the cold. I poured the feed into its trough. Right after, my mother-in-law ordered me into the kitchen to start the stove. The firewood was soaking wet. I spent forever trying to blow on the sparks, coughing and tearing up from the thick smoke. Finally, the fire caught, and I started simmering the corn porridge. I steamed a batch of white buns, chopped up some pickles, and kept kepis until the sun was high in the sky. At last, I managed to get breakfast on the table. My father-in-law took his seat at the head of the table, with my mother-in-law sitting right next to him.
前君是杨各挂的，奸名，俺四子小妹，勾散当秋。
Just as I was about to pull out a chair to sit down, my mother-in-law slammed her hand on the table. Who said you could sit? A new bride doesn't eat at the table for the first 3 months. That's the rule here. That's the rule here. I froze, utterly stunned. Around that table, not a single person spoke up for me. Jianju just kept his head down, shoveling food into his mouth, without even looking up once. Mom, what year is this? Who still has a rule like that? That is just how we do things in the Boer family. Since you married in, you have to follow our rules. If you won't, then get the hell back to your city. My father-in-law chimed in, saying, listen to your mother. My mother-in-law scraped a bowl of leftovers from the bottom of the pot, soaked a piece of stale flatbread in it, and shoved it in front of me. First the bitter, then the sweet. You have to eat this if you want to give birth to a boy. That's how I got through it, back in my day. Are you somehow more precious than I was? I looked down at the freezing cold leftover rice. The soaked flatbread inside had turned a sickly grayish yellow with a few corn grits floating on the surface. I picked up the bowl, my hand shaking. 君战中，方里走过。Wan, just make do for now. She's doing this for your own good, after all. For our own good? I stared at his supposedly gentle face and suddenly felt like he was a complete stranger. 3 years ago at school, this same man told me, you're the most beautiful city girl I've ever seen. He wrote me love letters, gave me wildflowers, and promised he would give me a good life in the future. But now, he doesn't even have the courage to let me sit at the table and eat a hot meal. I slammed the bowl of leftovers onto the ground. I'm not eating this! The bowl shattered. My mother-in-law's face darkened instantly. She slammed her hand on the table and stood up, pointing her finger right in my face. You've got some nerve. So what if you're a city girl living off state grain? Now that you've married into the Gu family, you belong to us. You don't get to throw tantrums here. If my son hadn't taken a liking to you in the first place, who cares if you're a city girl? You can't do any heavy labor. And you're still so high maintenance. My brother-in-law, Gu Jiamin, stood by, chuckling and enjoying the show. My sister-in-law, Gu Xiaomei, hid behind the door, gripping the doorframe and peeking in, while my father-in-law kept his head down, eating in silence. As if nothing was happening. My newlywed husband just sat there, without saying a single word. I shot him a look, and he looked back with eyes that pleaded, just bear with it for now. Bear with it? Why the hell should I? I turned around and stormed back to my room. I bolted the door from the inside. But my mother-in-law, screeching, didn't stop. She stood right outside the door, screaming her lungs out for a solid 15 minutes, spewing every vile, disgusting insult she could think of. And through it all, Gu Jinjun didn't say a single word to defend me. By noon, my mother-in-law was at it again, yelling, that pile of firewood by the door needs chopping, and the yard needs to be swept. What do you think you're doing? Hiding away in that room? Jianju is out there teaching, working hard to support this family, and you can't even lift a finger to do some chores? I didn't say a word. She kept yelling from the outside. Let me tell you something, Lin Wan. In this Gu family, we don't feed freeloaders. If you don't work, don't even think about eating. Sure enough, when dinner time came, there was nothing for me. I stood at the doorway, watching them eat. My heart went completely cold. For the entire day, I had nothing but a few sips of cold water. Late that night, my stomach was growling so loud I couldn't sleep. I snuck into the kitchen in the dark, hoping to find a bite to eat. But the moment I lifted the lid off the pot, my mother-in-law materialized out of nowhere. Those steamed buns in there are for tomorrow morning. What do you think you're touching? If you want to eat, you'd better get up early tomorrow and start working. You only get fed after you do your chores. If you don't work, you starve. We don't keep lazy freeloaders in this house. At that exact moment, it finally hit me. She wasn't just old-fashioned or overly strict. She was doing this on purpose. She wanted to break my spirit during my very first few days here to show me exactly who rules this house. But then I remembered. We only had a wedding ceremony. We haven't even registered our marriage yet. I can still leave. I went back to the bedroom. Fei-Qing was already fast asleep. I sat on the edge of the bed, my mind racing. My dowry is still sitting out there in the yard. A high-end sewing machine, a shiny new 28-inch bicycle, a Phoenix brand radio, and the 800 yuan my mom tucked away at the bottom of my dowry chest. There is no way I am leaving any of this behind. The next morning, I got up early. She peeked at me coming out of the room, a smug smile spreading across her face. Now that's more like it. Go feed the donkey first, then come help me stir the porridge. But I didn't feed the donkey, and I didn't stir any porridge. I just stood in the middle of the living room and said one thing, loud and clear. I'm going back to the city. Instantly, everyone at the table froze. My mother-in-law was the first to snap out of it. Back to the city? Don't even dream about it. Totally inspect us. A married daughter is like water poured out. There's no going back. You belong to the Gu family now. You think you still have a choice? You think you can just pack up and leave whenever you want? Do as now mother says. Stop acting up. I am leaving, and I'm taking my dowry with me. Once a dowry crosses our threshold, it belongs to the Gu family. And you think you can just carry it off? Sister-in-law, stop being so stubborn. Every wife in this village went through the exact same thing. So what if you're from the city? To marry you, our family spent a fortune. If you walk out, who's going to pay us back? Mei Xiaomayi shrank into the corner, muttering under her breath. She's right. My brother's entire salary went toward buying her. Thanks. Meanwhile, Gu Zhenjun just sat at the table, picking at some pickles with his chopsticks. Without saying a single word, I glared at him, but held his head down, pretending he couldn't hear a thing. In this house, not a single person was on my side. My parents paid for every single bit of my dowry. It has absolutely nothing to do with the Gu family, and I am taking my things. Leave? I dare you to take one step out of this house. The moment you walk out that door, you'll be known as nothing but a runaway bride who abandoned her family. Word has already spread to every village for miles around. Let's see who'd ever want a woman like you now. How are your parents even going to show their faces? How do you still have the nerve to go back to the city? I didn't bother arguing with her. I just turned around and went back inside my room and bolted the door from the inside. My mother-in-law stood outside, screaming curses at me for half an hour. Let me tell you something, Lin Wan. If you dare step 1 foot out of this store today, I will make sure your parents can never hold their heads up at the factory again. I didn't say a single word. I just spread out a piece of paper and wrote a letter to my parents. Once it was done, I tucked it safely into my coat. At noon, while my mother-in-law was taking a nap, I quietly slipped out to the entrance of the village. I found a local villager heading to the market to sell vegetables and handed him 50 cents. I begged him to deliver the letter to my family in the city. For those 3 days, my mother-in-law made my life an absolute living hell. She refused to feed me. There was no breakfast for me. And at dinner, she didn't even set a pair of chopsticks for me when there was half a pot of porridge left over from dinner. She looked me right in the eye and dumped it straight into the slop bucket. You want to leave? I'll starve you for 3 whole days. And let's see if you still have the strength to walk. When Zhu Jun came home from school, he noticed there was no bowl set out for me on the stove. He frowned slightly, then walked into our room. Wen, just swallow your pride for once. Apologize to mom, and she'll let you eat. Kijun, you can see perfectly well that your mother is starving me. I already talked to mom. You know she just has a short fuse. Don't lower yourself to her level. You talked to her? And what exactly did you say? I told her that you grew up in the city, and that you're not used to eating such coarse food. I asked her to cook something separate for you. I just stared at him, waiting to hear what else he had to say. But there was nothing else. He simply turned around and walked out. A moment later, he came back in, carrying a bowl of bland gruel. I put this on the edge of the bed. Eat a little first. Don't starve yourself. I looked down and saw the rim of the bowl was still stained with grease from leftovers. This porridge must have been sitting on the stove all day. Don't overthink it. Mom is just acting out of anger. Just make do with a few bites for now. I pushed the bowl back. I'm not eating it. Take it away. Why do you have to be so stubborn? Good Zhanzhidun. Your mother refuses to feed me, and you bring me this leftover slop? You went silent. He stood there, holding the bowl for a moment, then turned around and walked out. The door shut behind him. I heard him sigh outside the door. At dawn on the 3rd day, the rumble of a truck engine came from outside. I peered out the window and saw my dad, Lin Gong, and 2 of his co-workers from the factory jumping down from the truck. His face was dark with fury. Without a word, he marched straight into the yard. My mother-in-law rushed out of the kitchen. She froze for a second when she saw my dad. Well, look who's here, in-law. What brings you by? Your daughter is living a great life here with us. She doesn't have to work in the fields. She doesn't have to lift a finger. My dad ignored her completely. We'd walk straight into my room. When he saw me leaning against the edge of the bed, Tumei, pale and with badly chapped lips, my dad's hands started to tremble. He uttered only one word. Pack. We're going home. He turned around and started moving my things. The sewing machine, the bicycle, the transistor radio, and even the red lacquered camphor chest I had brought as my dowry. The co-workers carried them out to the truck, trip after trip. My mother-in-law blocked the sewing machine, pressing both hands down on it. What do you think you're doing? This belongs to the Gu family. Once that dowry crossed our threshold, it became ours. Don't you dare touch a single thing. My dad snatched the sewing machine right out of her hands and shoved it to his coworker. I bought these things for my own daughter. Since when did they become yours? Your daughter married into our family. She belongs to us now. So everything she brought naturally belongs to us too. Oh, so just because you're city folk, you think you're better than us? Does being from the city give you the right to be so unreasonable? My father-in-law finally walked out of the house. He stood on the steps, not lifting a finger to help or stop anyone. In-law, let's talk this through calmly. Now that your daughter has married into our home, if there is any issue, we can sit down and talk about it. My daughter hasn't eaten a single bite for 3 days. She is starving to death. Did you sit down and talk to me about that? My father-in-law fell silent. Pukian poked his head out from inside, but my dad caught him with a sharp glare, forcing him right back inside. Bishchai Meli he by the kitchen door, too terrified to even breathe. Seeing that she couldn't save the sewing machine, my mother-in-law threw herself onto the bicycle, screaming, Jiaju needs this bike for work! If you take it away,
How is Jiangjun supposed to get to school?
if he misses his classes, will you take responsibility? My dad grabbed her and yanked her aside, making her stumble. She plopped onto the ground and began to wail. Oh heavens! The city folks are bullying us. They're robbing us. Is there no law and order anymore? A few neighbors poked their heads out to watch, but no one stepped in to stop us. As our things were all loaded onto the truck, my dad turned around and went back into the house. He helped me up from the brick bed. My legs were so weak that after just 2 steps, I almost collapsed. His co-worker quickly rushed over to lend a hand. My mother-in-law scrambled up from the ground, rushed over, and grabbed the truck door screen. You can't take her. She belongs to the Good family. Taking her away is kidnapping. I'm going to the commune to report you. My dad shoved in aside. My daughter didn't marry into your family to be worked like a slave. I'm taking her things. And I'm taking her with me. Go ahead and sue us. Sue us wherever you want. I'll be waiting. We might as well let the commune judge who's right. What kind of family starves a brand new daughter-in-law for 3 whole days? My mother-in-law stumbled back 2 steps from the push and fell flat on her butt. She was really panicking this time. She slapped her thighs, her voice cracking as she wailed. Oh heavens! What did I do to deserve this? We brought a daughter-in-law into this house just to ruin my life.
兵群中 stood a Koja gate.
Watching me being helped onto the truck, his lips parted. But in the end, he didn't say a word. The truck started. In the rearview mirror, my mother-in-law was still sitting on the ground. My father-in-law walking over to pull her up, only to be shaken off. On the way back to the city that day, my dad didn't say a single word. Only when we were almost home did he finally speak. Your mother and I should have never agreed to this marriage in the first place. I didn't say anything. Leaning against the window, watching the road pass by, my heart felt completely hollow. It wasn't regret. I just felt so incredibly foolish. We dated for 3 years, and I never actually saw who he really was. I thought that was the end of it. But to my surprise, on the 5th day, Thing Jujun followed me all the way to the city. He stood downstairs outside my building, standing there for a whole day. My mom tried to persuade me. That boy has been standing out there all day, and he hasn't even eaten a single bite. I ignored him. But the 2nd day, he was still there. On the 3rd day, he was still there. The neighbors started to gossip, and my mom couldn't take the pressure anymore. One. Just go down and see him. No matter what, at least hear him out and clear things up. I finally went downstairs.
病菌中还落实了老的味。
His lips chapped and cracked, and his eyes completely bloodshot.
Mara, it's my fault.
I failed to protect you. You know how my mom is. She's so old-fashioned. Look, I even wrote a pledge. I promise to treat you, my wife, the absolute best. I promise my mom will never bully you. I promise I'll never let you do any heavy chores. Look, I even put my thumbprint on it. My mom's heart softened. She pulled me into the room to talk it over. The boy does seem really sincere, she said. But with his mother's awful attitude, marrying him would be pure torture. From our wedding night until now, the more I think about certain things, the more off they seem. Zhu Zhenjin pursued me back in school. He tried way too hard. He asked how many people were in my family, what kind of house we lived in, which factory my dad worked at, and whether we had state-allocated city rations. He asked questions more detailed than a census check. I didn't think much of it back then. But looking back now, every single question sounded like he was sizing up our wealth. I decided to put him on a trial period, not because I was softening up, but to figure out what he's really after. Fine. I'll give you 3 months. During these 3 months, I'm not going back to the village. You will come visit me once a month and let me see your sincerity.
Lin Wan eagerly agreed.
He laughed after showering me with endless gratitude. I stood upstairs watching his retreating figure and thought to myself, Bu Jingjun, are you actually being sincere? I would find out soon enough. During the first month of the trial,
耕俊荣千百从爱。
each time, he brought heaps of bags, as if he wanted to bring the entire village with him. He served tea and poured water at our place, fixed the faucet for my dad, and wiped the windows for my mom. His behavior was absolutely flawless. My parents' attitude softened visibly. After dinner, he stood on the balcony, looking at the row of buildings opposite ours, and sighed. Wan, your family's apartment is so incredibly spacious. If my parents get older and move to the city in the future, there'd be plenty of room for them here, right? He instantly realized he'd let that slip. We quickly tried to cover it up, saying, oh, I was just thinking out loud. I didn't mean anything by it. Through 3 years. He said things like that way too many times. Back then, love blinded me, so I never thought twice about it. But now that my eyes are wide open and I'm listening closely, every single word stings like a needle. And there was another time that was even worse. He was helping my mom wash the dishes while making small talk with her. Somehow, he managed to steer the conversation toward hiring at the factory. Mom, I heard the factory is hiring a batch of temp workers soon. A few of the young guys back in my village really want to come to the city and find some work, but they just don't have any connections. It would be so great if my younger brother Jenin could get a job at the factory. Honestly, there's really no future for him back in the village. Mom, do you think you could ask around and help him out? My mom just looked at him. She didn't say a word. Realizing he'd pushed too far, Go Jianjun quickly laughed it off and changed the subject. But every single time he visited, he would casually drop these hints. Sometimes it was about Jimin's job. Other times, it was about getting Xiaomi registered for a city residency. He never demanded anything outright, but every point which particular to levitus might to still fawn to the same crucia. During the second month, he paid us another visit. These are some pickled vegetables my mom put so much effort into making. She insisted I bring them over to apologize to Lin Wan. But when we opened the lid, they were so incredibly salty that they were completely inedible. Still, he sounded so sincere that my mom accepted them anyway. It's the thought that counts. Please thank your mother for me. That evening, right before he left, he grabbed my hand and whispered, Wan, 3 months is just too long. I think about you every single day while I'm teaching. Why don't you come back early? Let's just go register our marriage first. The people back in the village are already gossiping. They're saying that without a marriage certificate, we're not actually married. My heart sank. He was bringing up the marriage certificate again. Before, I just thought he was eager to marry me. Looking back, that desperation of his wasn't love. He was just terrified I'd run away. Terrified his cash cow would escape. I just smiled. I didn't say yes, but I didn't say no either. Let's wait a bit, I said. No rush. Near the end of the second month, my mom asked me to go to the countryside to bring to Jane Jin some return gifts. He was working as a temporary teacher at the village elementary school, living in the dormitory behind the school. When I arrived, he was in the middle of a class, so I waited for him in his dorm room. The room was tiny, just a wooden plank bed and a desk. The desk was piled high with books and homework notebooks. I wanted to help him tidy up, so I started putting the books and notebooks into the cabinet. But when I reached inside, my hand brushed against a tin cookie box. I opened it and found a thick stack of letters. They were written by his mother, about 7 or 8 of them in total. From the moment Gu Jianjun and I started dating, not a single one was missing. I sat on the edge of the bed and read them, one by one. And the more I read, the colder my hands became. The first letter read, I heard that city girl's family has official city status.
And her dad is a manager at the factory.
They even own a multi-story brick house. This marriage must happen, no matter what. Once it's official, our whole family will finally have a future. The second letter was even more blunt. First, keep her hooked. Once you two get married and get the certificate, do not let her transfer her household registration to the village. It's not worth it. Find a way to transfer our family's registrations over to the city instead. If we can get your brother Jianmen and Xiaomi's registrations, change from rural to urban, they won't have to toil in the dirt for the rest of their lives. The third letter started calculating my dowry. A sewing machine is worth at least 300, the bicycle is 200, and the radio is over 100. Plus, there's her dowry cash. Once she steps through our door, all of this belongs to our family. If she ever dares to ask for it back, just tell her it was offset by the bride price. The letters after that got even more detailed, plotting exactly how he should manipulate me, how to behave in front of my parents. They even detailed the exact steps to steal my family's house and make it the Gu family's property. The last letter was written half a month ago, right after I made a scene about returning to the city. It said, this woman is stubborn. Lower your head and play nice first. Write a pledge of guarantee if you have to. Once she comes back, we've feeling. We will seal the deal. She won't be able to run away. As for her family's house, we can all move in there in the future. I folded the letters back, one by one, and put them back into the metal box. My hands were ice cold, and my heart was completely numb. It turned out, From the very beginning, I was nothing but a fat sheep they targeted to fleece.
In Ji's devoted love. His painful waiting.
His kneeling down, his written pledge. It was all just an act. He never cared about me. He wanted my city residency, my house, and my state grain rations.
金俊中天拜看了卡什，
He pushed the door open and saw me sitting on the edge of the bed. He smiled warmly and called my name. Was it cold on your way here? Let me pour you a cup of hot water. He eagerly poured me the water, showering me with care and concern. Looking at his gentle, smiling face, for the first time, I realized it was nothing but a mask. Peel it back, and underneath is nothing but cold calculation. I took the cup and smiled. Jin Jun, I've been thinking, but 3 months is just too long. I want to go back to your village early to meet your family. His eyes lit up instantly, but afraid he'd look too eager, he quickly suppressed his excitement. Really? That's wonderful! But are you sure? Didn't you write that pledge of guarantee? I trust you. He grabbed my hand, overwhelmed with emotion. It squeezed his hand back, too, but my heart. It felt colder than a frozen river in the dead of winter.
并金中，
You pay me. I'll make you pay with everything you have, but not just yet. I'm going to take you down, step by step. Before leaving, I made sure to stop by his dorm one more time. While he thought he was seeing me out, I slipped right back inside and copied every single one of those letters. I couldn't touch the originals. If anything was missing, he'd get suspicious. I folded my copies neatly, got on my bike, and rode away without looking back. A few days later, I followed Gu Jianjun back to his village. My mother-in-law was waiting at the door to welcome me. A massive grin was plastered across her face, but that smile was colder and faker than a freezing winter wind. Oh, Wan, you're back. Come inside, come inside. Mom made chicken stew just for you. Walking into the courtyard, I looked around. He had actually slaughtered a whole chicken. In a village like this, that was a huge deal. My mother-in-law hovered around me, fussing over me, and asking how I was doing. She kept calling me her sweet daughter, over and over. It was like she was a completely different person. Then, when dinner was served, she sat me down right at the center of the table. She even put a chicken drumstick on my plate herself. She thought she had me completely tamed. Little did she know, the real show was just getting started. But this fake peace didn't last very long. Halfway through the meal, my mother-in-law completely changed her tune. She brought something up, acting as casual as she could.
Wan, dear.
Jianjun is teaching at the school right now, but the pay is so low. Since your dad is an executive at the factory, could you help find Jinchun a job in the city too? If he moves to the city, the two of you can finally be together, right? I didn't even pause my chopsticks. I just smiled and said, Mom, there's no rush for that. Jinjun is doing perfectly fine teaching at the school. He should just stick with it for now. Then my mother-in-law chimed in. And Jianmin isn't young anymore. Why don't you see if your dad's place has any job openings? Even starting as a factory apprentice would be fine. We're family, after all. We've got to look out for one another. I sneered to myself. Here it comes. The exact scheme laid out in that letter. He was so impatient to set his plan in motion. I didn't say a word and just kept my head down, shoveling food into my mouth. Genjanju tried to smooth things over, saying, Wan just got back. We can talk about this stuff later. But that night, something even more sickening happened. Once we got back to our room,
Beichen Jung suddenly wrapped his arms around me.
he leaned in close and whispered, Since you're back, why don't we go register our marriage? I already checked. The commune office is open tomorrow. Let's go and get the paperwork done. My stomach clenched, but I didn't let it show on my face. What's the rush? Let's wait until after the new year. We have to hurry. It's only official once we have that certificate. Otherwise, the villagers will keep gossiping. They're saying that even though we had the wedding feast, not having the paper means we're still not legally married. He sounded incredibly sincere, his eyes brimming with deep affection. But all I could think about was the line from that letter. Once they sign the papers, she'll be trapped for good. Her family's house will be ours, sooner or later. I forced a smile, leaning gently into his chest. Okay, I'll listen to you. We'll go in a couple of days. Staring into the darkness later that night, my eyes were wide open, more clear-headed than I'd ever been. Sign the papers? Keep dreaming. I had much more important things to take care of first. At the dinner table the next day, my father-in-law, his younger brother Jemin, and his sister, Xiaomi, were all gathered. I raised my glass, toasting them one by one. Dad, let me offer you a toast. Jemsern and I will make sure you're well taken care of from now on. My father-in-law grinned from ear to ear. Then I turned to Jamin. Jamin, I heard you've been working with the village brigade. Must be hard work. Q Jamin let out a sheepish laugh, stretching his head. I casually brought it up. Oh, by the way, Jamin, didn't you used to work at the commune grain depot? Jane Gung mentioned it to me. She said his little brother was so capable and that everyone at the grain depot praised you. The moment I said this, Thingjiman's face went pale. I wasn't there for very long. I just helped out for a few days. That's all. Seeing this, my mother-in-law quickly cut in to change the subject. Come on in, eat. Have some food. Don't just talk. I quietly noted their family's reaction. It seemed whatever Junamin did at that grain depot was definitely fishy. But I decided not to expose it just yet. I would save this card for later. The next day, I volunteered to go to the neighboring village to visit our relatives. My mother-in-law was absolutely thrilled, immediately arranging for Jianju to take me. First, we went to Junjun's second uncle's house, and then to his third aunt's. I made sure to be sweet-talking and helpful, greeting everyone warmly. All the elders kept praising what a wonderful wife the Gu family had married. While we were at his third aunt's house, I started chatting with her, intentionally steering the conversation toward Jinjun's teaching job. Auntie, Jinjun is a community school teacher. I'm so incredibly proud of him. He's the very first high school graduate in our entire village. His aunt forced a smile, her expression incredibly tense. She glanced at Junjun, then back at me, hesitating as if she wanted to say something. I quickly pressed her. Auntie, what's wrong? Are you keeping something from me? She hesitated for a long moment. Oh, it's nothing. It's really not that big of a deal.
Junjun's face fell instantly.
He rushed to cut her off. Auntie, don't listen to Lin Wan's nonsense. I smiled slightly and stopped pushing for answers. On the way back, I made an excuse that my stomach was hurting. Told Zhen to go on ahead and quietly doubled back on my own. When Auntie saw me return, she was completely shocked. She quickly closed the courtyard gate and pulled me into the back room. Auntie, it's just the two of us here. You didn't finish what you wanted to say, did you? Auntie sighed heavily. Lin Wan. Jianju's teaching spot. He stole it from Zhou Denyu. My heart skipped a beat, but I kept my face blank. Zhou Denyu? Menu failed his exams back then, but the commune gave him a placement anyway. Your father-in-law used his connections to snatch the spot. When Danyu's family came to make a scene, your father-in-law brought a crowd and beat them up. The whole village knows about it, but nobody dares to bring it up. A chill ran down my spine. It all made sense now. Gu Zhenjun's career as a teacher was dirty from the very beginning. Auntie, thank you. I won't tell anyone. Lin Wan. I'm not trying to gossip. I'm just worried you're being kept in the dark. Jinjun, that boy, he takes after his mother. He's far too calculating. I nodded, already planning my next move. That afternoon, I went back to the Gu family home. At the dinner table, I casually remarked, Mom, I heard some grain went missing from the commune's granary. They still haven't figured out who did it. Those words were like a bomb dropped right onto the table. My father-in-law whipped his head up to look at my mother. Law. His eyes filled with sheer panic. Ding Jinjun looked at his mother, then at me, and knit his brows. Who said that? It's just mindless gossip. It has nothing to do with us. I was just making conversation. As long as it has nothing to do with our family, that's fine. Needless to say, the rest of dinner was absolute chaos. But inside, I felt incredibly calm and confident. Thing Jiamin's grain theft was covered up by my mother-in-law. But now I hold 2 trump cards. And those letters, they're more than enough to tear off the Gu family's mask and expose their shamelessness. On this day, my mother-in-law invited our relatives over for dinner, claiming it was to officially introduce me to the family. A lot of relatives showed up. Second uncle and third aunt were all there. We set up 2 tables inside the house, and another table out in the courtyard. I changed into new clothes and went from table to table, raising a toast. Seeing me handle myself so gracefully, my mother-in-law, for once, managed a genuinely warm smile. After a few rounds of drinks, the atmosphere grew lively. The men were bragging, and the women were catching up on gossip. Holding my glass, I walked up to Uncle Joe, Daniel's father. Uncle Joe, let me propose a toast to you. Back then, Daniel was really cut out for academics. It's such a shame he didn't catch a lucky break. Uncle Joe gave a faint, bitter smile, glanced at my father-in-law, who was silently drinking, and emptied his glass with Jianjun. I casually added, by the way, I heard they're going to audit the qualifications for all the community school teachers. I wonder if that rumor is actually true. The moment I said this, everyone at the table fell silent as they listened. Uncle Joe's eyes instantly lit up. He glared at my father-in-law. Jianjun's teaching spot. How did he actually get it? Don't act like you don't know. That spot was supposed to go to my Daniel. Daniel scored much higher than him. Why on earth did it go to your Kyujun? My father-in-law's smile froze instantly. Daniel had been bottling up his resentment for years. He's still out there in the fields, toiling away in the dirt. If your family hadn't stolen that spot, he could be a respected teacher on the government payroll right now. Uncle Joe grew more and more agitated as he spoke. And Joe Daniel stood up too. Go Jianjun! Just how much did your family bribe the village committee? My test scores were higher than yours. So why the hell did they give the spot to you? To you? The relatives began whispering among themselves, muttering to one another in hushed tones. My mother-in-law panicked and shrieked, "You're talking absolute nonsense! My son earned that spot with his own hard work. You Jors are just green with envy and here to cause trouble." But Uncle Joe wasn't buying his act. At all. Fine, let's get the commune officials involved and let them judge. The commune keeps records of all the exam results from back then. Once they pull them out, the truth will be crystal clear. I just sat in the corner, munching on melon seeds, looking completely innocent. One thing she couldn't stared at me with a dark, suspicious look. He probably suspected I was the one stirring up trouble, but he didn't have time to deal with me right now. He was too busy forcing a smile, trying desperately to calm everyone down. Hun. But a few sweet words weren't going to put out the Zhou family's burning rage. Burn. So, I casually threw another log onto the fire. 1. Stop fighting, everyone! I heard the commune is about to investigate the grain theft case. Someone reported it, and they'll be coming to inspect the place very soon. Instantly, all the color drained from Zhu Yamin's face. 1. My mother-in-law choked on her words, suddenly speechless. My father-in-law leaped to his feet, every single eye in the room locked onto Jemit. My big-mouth second aunt couldn't help herself. 1. She whispered, "Hey, sister-in-law. Jaman was working at the grain depot last year, right? I remember hearing back then that some grain had gone missing. Could it be..." Shut your mouth. Just for...
Jaman didn't steal any grain.
You're just spitting venom and making things up. But the harder she defended him, the guiltier they looked. The relatives started looking at them with growing suspicion. 1. Some began to recall the grain theft from back then. And they started whispering among themselves. 1. Thing? It turned out everyone had suspected Gu Zheming back then. But they just didn't have any proof. Unbelievable! Look at the prestigious Go family. The oldest son steals someone else's spot. Doc, you won? And the youngest son steals grain from the commune. Is this how you raise your children? Is this your family's precious legacy? My mother-in-law and Uncle Joe started screaming insults at each other. Q. My father-in-law tried to pull them apart, but he couldn't. Even second uncle, who was trying to break it up, got shoved aside. Furious, he started bringing up old dirt right then and there. Back then, you got down on your knees and begged me to clean up your mess. You swore you'd never forget my kindness for the rest of your life. But the moment Junjun became a teacher, you let it go to your head. During New Year, you didn't even send me even one single chicken. You have the nerve to say that? I gave you 2 whole bags of grain. 2 whole bags of grain! Do you have any idea how much of a risk I took? Janin stealing from the granary is enough to put him behind bars for years. Are you really that clueless? The Gu family was in utter chaos. The relatives started dragging up old grudges against each other. Who owed who? Who screwed over who? They aired it all out in screaming matches. The screaming was so loud, the entire village could hear them. I stood by the courtyard gate, watching the whole farce play out, and my heart was completely at peace. Word traveled fast. The moment the commune opened, investigators showed up to look into Gu Jingjin's teaching credentials and the theft at the granary. 2 officials from the commune arrived. They stayed with the brigade for 3 days, going door to door to question everyone. Fo Jiun was called in for questioning twice, and when he came back, his face was completely ashen, as if he had lost his very soul. My mother-in-law paced around the house, cursing heaven, earth, and everyone else. She was just about to start on me when Zhu Zhaozhong stopped her, snapping, "Will you just shut up? Cursing anyone isn't going to help." The commune's investigation results came out quickly. Think Jiangxin's teaching slot had indeed been stolen through backroom connections. The commune immediately revoked his teaching credentials. And Juanmin? His theft from the granary was proven, and they dragged him away for interrogation.
兵举中还更铺的牢是他提请招。
To him, this was a devastating blow. For a village kid, becoming a teacher was the only ticket out of poverty. Without that title, he was nothing but an ordinary, dirt-poor peasant. The city residency. The city residency? The state-supplied rations. And his future father-in-law's house. All of it vanished into thin air. When he got home, I was airing out the quilts in the yard. His eyes were bloodshot. He lunged at me and grabbed my arm. Did you do this? I violently shook off his hand.
Did what?
Those rumors about the Zhou family. You spread them on purpose. And the theft at the granary. You orchestrated the whole thing, didn't you? I looked at him, completely unfazed. Go Jianzhong. Are you really that clueless about what you've done? You're the one who stole that teaching slot. And your brother is the one who stole the grain. What does any of that have to do with me? Actually, you are the one who needs to come clean. Why did you marry me in the first place? He froze, completely stunned. I pulled out the copies of those letters, spreading them out page by page right in front of him. Recognize these? The letters your mother wrote to you. From the very first letter, she was plotting to get her hands on my household registration, plotting to steal my house and my state-rationed grain. All that sincerity when we were dating, it was nothing but an act. Good Jun, what did you take me for? An ATM? Or just a lamb waiting to be slaughtered? Thing Jingo's face flushed with a mixture of anger and shame. He lunged forward and snatched the papers. How dare you go through my things? I didn't just go through them. I copied every single word. The originals are still in the metal box in your dorm, but the copies are with me. We can go and verify them anytime you want. Oh, by the way, I've already sent the contents of those letters to the County Education Bureau. The county will keep investigating how you stole that academic quota. Gu Jianjun completely broke down. You ruined me tonight. You ruined my entire life. My mother-in-law rushed out, saw the scene, and began to wail at the top of her lungs. Oh heavens! What sin did we commit to deserve this? Lin Wan, you absolute jinx! You came here just to destroy our Gu family.
金俊中肯扑地老子停手。
His eyes turned bloodshot, and he charged toward me, ready to hit me. I turned around and walked toward the entrance of the village. Lin Wan, you can't leave. Explain yourself! He screamed from behind me, his voice filled with urgent rage, mixed with a hint of sheer panic. I didn't even look back. A long-distance bus heading to the county seat was parked at the village entrance. We quickened my pace, bought a ticket, and got on. Get the hell down here! The conductor frowned and yelled. What do you think you're doing? Do you want to get killed? The driver slammed on the gas. The car surged forward.
礼宾听众神奸引得快到的到。
His figure grew smaller and smaller until he was just a tiny speck. Meanwhile, the car rattled and bumped its way toward the county seat. I closed my eyes, clinging to a single, desperate thought. Go home. I just had to get home first. By the time I reached home, the sky was pitch black. It was my mom who opened the door, but the moment she saw what I looked like, she froze on the spot, utterly speechless, staring at my deathly pale face. Anyone looking at me right then would know something terrible had happened. My dad came rushing out of the room, and his eyes turned red with tears the second he saw me. Did the fum fully hurt you? He couldn't say a single word. I just collapsed into my mom's arms and sobbed. It wasn't because I felt wronged. It was the sheer terror of that moment when Ju Zhenjun charged at me. If the neighbors hadn't rushed in and stopped him in time, I honestly don't know what he would have done to me. 3 years of being together. And in the end, he actually tried to lay a hand on me. I wiped away my tears, took out the copy of the other letter, and laid the pages out on the table. Mom, Dad, look at this. My dad began flipping through them, page by page, his face growing darker and darker with rage. By the time he reached the third page, he slammed the letter down on the table, fuming with rage. My mom finished reading, her hands shaking violently, and her tears started flowing all over again. Sweetheart, we are not going back. Never. Not even over my dead body. I had no intention of going back anyway. But I wasn't about to let them off that easily. That night, I couldn't sleep a wink. Lying on the bed I'd slept in since I was a little girl, staring up the ceiling, my mind kept looping on one single question. What does the Gu family have left now?
东京柱老实举渣。
Feng Jianmin was thrown in jail, and their family name was utterly ruined in the village. But for them, that wasn't enough. Not nearly enough. Everything they had their greedy eyes on back then, they won't get to touch a single shred of it for the rest of their miserable lives. The next morning, I wasted no time and set my plan in motion. First, I paid a visit to the factory. The office director at my dad's factory was a man named Sun. He was my dad's old war buddy, and they were incredibly close. So, I went to borrow a tape recorder from him, and also borrowed a coworker who had just been discharged from the military to be my driver for 3 days. All I had to do was cover his meals and cigarettes. Director Sun agreed without hesitation. He even asked me, Lin, who are you going after? Do you need my help? I smiled and replied, no thanks, I'll handle this myself. Once I secured the tape recorder and the car, I went to find Third Aunt. She was in the yard, feeding the chickens. The moment she saw me, guilt washed over her face. She almost dropped the basket in her hand, stammering, Wan brings you here. 20 man to need deliver. Third Aunt, I need a favor. The things you and second uncle screamed at each other during the family banquet. I want you to help me record them. Third Aunt's face went instantly pale. No, absolutely not. Those are just things said in the heat of the moment. You can't take them seriously. Third Aunt. I pulled out 20 yuan and slipped it into her hand. I know your eldest grandson is starting middle school this year, and you haven't been able to scrape together his tuition. 20 yuan is enough to cover his school fees for an entire semester. Help me record this, and I promise not to tell a soul. You promise? Third Aunt stared at the 20 yuan, hesitating for a long time, before finally biting her lip and nodding. Next, I went to see Second Aunt. Second Aunt was much easier to win over than Third Aunt. She already detested her mother-in-law to the bone. So, when she heard I was going to teach the Gu family a lesson, she agreed on the spot without a single second thought. Wan, you've got some real guts. It's about time someone put that old hag in her place. In front of the tap recorder, she spilled everything. How her mother-in-law begged her father-in-law to clean up her messes back in the day, and how she defaulted on a debt of 2 bags of grain. By the third day, I paid another visit to the grain depot. The station master there was a man named Ma. When he saw me walk in, his expression turned incredibly tense. Pu Jianmin's grain theft had just been exposed, and as the station master, he couldn't escape the blame for failing to supervise him. These past few days, he had been absolutely drowning in stress. I didn't look for him for the recording. It was for something else. Station manager Ma, how much grain did Gu Jianmin steal? Station manager Ma wiped his sweat. He hedged. We're still looking into it. We haven't got the exact figures yet. Well, I've already done the math for you. I pulled a piece of paper from my pocket. It was densely packed with numbers. Ju Jianmin worked at the grain station for 4 months. Each month, 10 bags of corn went missing, along with 5 bags of wheat, plus some miscellaneous grains. In total, that adds up to over 300 yuan. Based on the grain prices back then, this amount is enough to make it a major criminal case. Station manager Ma's face turned pale. How do you know all this? I guessed. I smiled slightly. If I take you to audit the books, it should be pretty close to that. Station manager Ma, you don't want to blow this out of proportion, do you? If Gu Jianmin ends up behind bars, won't you, as the station manager, have to take responsibility for your poor oversight? But if you can prove that the Gu family returned the grain, or if you have a record showing you actively tried to recover it, then your liability will be much smaller. Station manager Ma's eyes lit up. What do you mean? What I mean is, make the Gu family convert the grain into cash and pay it back. Over 300 yuan might not be much for city folk, but for the Gu family, they couldn't scrape it together even if they sold everything they owned. And if they can't cough up the cash, then you go to their house and start seizing their things. Take whatever they have. Just completely clean them out. That way, with a recovery record on file, you'll face much less accountability. As for me, I pause for a moment. I just want the Gu family to know that scheming against others comes with a price. Station manager Ma stared at me for a solid half a minute. You're one ruthless goal. I smiled. I didn't reply. 3 days later, station manager Ma took two men to Gu family home. That's what Aunt 3 told me later. Gu family had only been quiet for 2 days, and my mother-in-law was already in the yard, cursing heaven, earth, and me with everything she had. Just then, Station Master Ma pushed the door open and walked right in. The moment my mother-in-law saw him, her face went completely pale. Her mouth fell open, and all the nasty curses she was about to spit out got stuck right in her throat. Look here, sister. About that batch of grain Jinmin stole. We finished calculating the losses. It comes out to a total of 326 yuan. The waste and processing fees added on. Let's round it to 350. You have 3 days to pay it off in full. Otherwise, I'll send men to seize your belongings. My mother-in-law exploded on the spot. 350? Why don't you just rob us instead? Even if I sell everything we own, I couldn't scrape together 350 yuan. Station Master Mar handed over a slip of paper with a cold, business-like look. Here's the itemized bill. See for yourself. I am giving you 3 days. Once the deadline passes, don't expect any mercy.
Xi Hizhong walked out of the room.
His face is dark and grim as a gathering storm. Station Master Ma, we don't have that kind of money. Then I'm sorry. Station Master Ma slammed the paper onto the table. 3 days from now, I will be back to seize your things. The moment Station Master Ma left, the Yua household descended into utter chaos. Finally, my father-in-law spoke up. Sell the grain. Sell every last grain we have stored in the barn. And sell those silver bracelets of yours too. But my mother-in-law flatly refused. She wailed at the top of her lungs, screaming that they were part of her dowry, and she would rather die than sell them. Think Jun sat by the table, staring in dead silence. In the end, Gu Shamei spoke up in frustration. What if we borrow it? My mother-in-law spat in disgust. With? Who would we borrow from? Who in this entire village would ever lend us a single dime now? Under the relentless pressure of Station Master Ma's debt collection, the Gu family was stripped of all their pretenses. 350 yuan might not seem like a massive fortune to city folks, but to a family that had just lost a stable teaching job, whose son had just been thrown into jail, and whose reputation in the village was completely ruined, this was truly the final straw that broke the camel's back. 3 days later, Station Master Ma returned with a group of men. The Gu family couldn't produce a single penny of the 350 yuan. Without a shred of mercy, he ordered his men to start hauling things out. The red lantern radio, gone. The black and white television my father-in-law had saved up for 3 whole years to buy, gone. In the end, they even dug up my mother-in-law's treasured dowry silver bracelets to settle the remaining debt. My mother-in-law collapsed onto the floor, slapping her thighs and wailing in utter despair. She screamed until her voice went completely hoarse. What a disaster. My father-in-law crouched in the corner, his face dark as a storm. Gu Jinjun stood in the yard, clenching his fists so hard his knuckles popped.
小苗裔等替成图台儿发地有收和费。
Everything had been cleared out, leaving more than half the yard completely empty. Before Station Master Ma left, he spat out, "We're even now." But as for Jumin, this isn't over. The law will handle him. He'll get what he deserves. Just wait for the official notice. The Gu family was completely ruined. But I wasn't done yet. I did something even more ruthless. I transcribed the voice recordings of second aunt and third aunt, made dozens of copies, and waited for market day. I plastered them all over the county and town markets. The village gossip spread like wildfire through all the neighboring towns. Sir, there wasn't a single household in the area that didn't know about the Gu family's shameful secrets. The relatives, who used to be close to them, now actively avoided them whenever they crossed paths. When second uncle saw my father-in-law at the village entrance, he just sneered and walked right past him. Without even saying hello. Even third aunt's daughter, who used to be Gu Xiaomi's best friend, now turned and walked away without a word whenever she saw her. Public opinion is a knife that cuts deep without drawing blood.
Feng Juan was completely blacklisted.
None of the schools in the surrounding towns dared to hire him. They wouldn't even hire him as a substitute teacher. He went to neighboring towns to look for work. But the moment they heard the name, Gu Zhengjun, they waved their hands and said, "I've heard about you.
Our place is too small
to accommodate a big shot like you." After sitting idle at home for 2 weeks, he couldn't take it anymore. He suddenly asked around at a construction site, which was looking for manual laborers to haul cement and carry bricks. They paid 2 yuan a day, more than half less than his school teacher's salary. He hesitated for 2 days, but ended up going anyway. By the 3rd day, when he came home, his hands shook so badly at dinner that he couldn't even hold his chopsticks. My mother-in-law's heart broke, and she couldn't stop crying. But Gu Zhengjun didn't say a single word. Keeping his head down, he wolfed down the entire bowl in seconds. Seeing her son in such a miserable state, my mother-in-law started another round of hysterical screaming. "Oh God, are you blind?" Our Pan family has been law-abiding for generations. Why are you doing this to us? But God ignored her. Meanwhile, my father-in-law's health also completely collapsed. He already suffered from chronic stomach issues. And with all the anger and anxiety of late, his stomach condition flared up. When we urged him to see a doctor, he waved his hand dismissively. See a doctor for what? Where would we even get the money for that? When the pain became truly unbearable, he could only grit his teeth and bear it. I think Shami was only 16 years old. She was originally studying in town, but after this scandal, she couldn't show her face at school anymore. All her classmates knew what her family had done. Your brother stole someone else's spot, and your little brother is a thief who steals grain. Kilmel's face flushed bright red, and she couldn't utter a single word in response. She threw her backpack over her shoulder and ran straight home. My mother-in-law tried to make her go back to school, but she flatly refused. I'd rather stay home and farm. I'm not going back to school to be laughed at. My mother-in-law spent 2 days trying to persuade her, but couldn't change her mind. In the end, she just gave up. The Gu family was like a decaying old house. Once it collapsed, nothing was left but a pile of worthless debris. Sometime later, I heard some news. The Gu family was putting their house up for sale. The news was passed to me by third aunt, the day after Station Master Ma moved all his things out. That was the very day the Gu family completely ran out of food. Zhang's salary was gone. My father-in-law was too sick to do any heavy labor. Kei Xiaomei had dropped out of school. With 4 mouths to feed and absolutely no income, let alone paying off their debts, they could barely even put food on the table. My mother-in-law gritted her teeth and decided to sell the house so they could move back to their old, abandoned family home in the mountains. There were still 2 old shack-like rooms up there. With a bit of fixing up, they would at least have a roof over their heads. When third aunt told me about this, there was a trace of pity in her voice. Wawa, didn't you go a bit too far? Did you really have to push them this far? I remained silent for a long time. To be honest, I never expected the Gu family to end up in such a miserable state. If you scheme against others, you have to pay the price. But I never expected them to end up selling their house and living in a cave. This isn't how I pictured it. My only goal was to ruin their reputation, and nothing more. My mom saw my hesitation. She squeezed my hand and said, Wan, are you getting soft-hearted? I shook my head. No, it's not that. It's just, I didn't think things would get this out of hand. There are plenty of things you couldn't have predicted. When it comes down to it, what happened to the Gu family isn't your fault. Le Jiamin stole the grain. That was his own doing. Buludu stole the spot. That was your father-in-law's doing. All you did was speak the truth. The mess they are in today is entirely their own choice. It has nothing to do with you. Your mother is right. If you had just stayed quiet when they bullied you back then, the one suffering in a cell today would be you. I replayed my father's words in my head over and over again. The next day, I went back to the village and found third aunt to ask her for one last favor. After hearing my request, third aunt fell silent for a long moment. Finally, she said, Wan, you are far more ruthless than your mother-in-law. You're wrong, third aunt. I'm not ruthless. I just have a line I won't cross. Dugu family plotted against me, so I retaliated. That matter is settled now. But Xiaomi is innocent. She is only 16 years old. Her whole life shouldn't be ruined just because of what her family did. What I wanted third aunt's help with was finding a way out for Gu Xiaomei. I asked third aunt to tell Gu Xiaomei that Lin Wan had already spoken to Station Master Ma at the town's grain station. The town grain station was currently hiring a temporary worker with free meals and lodging included and a monthly salary of 15 yuan. Wan said you can have the job on one condition. From now on, you are not allowed to have anything to do with that family. You're not allowed to use your paycheck to bail them out. Not a single penny. This is the last shred of mercy I will ever show the Gus. And it's the final piece of kindness I have left for Gu Xiaomei. Whether she can seize this opportunity is entirely up to her. Third aunt told me later. When Gu Xiaomei heard this, she wiped away her tears, nodded. Not long after, my mother-in-law's house was sold. The buyer was another family from the village. A family named Li who raised 30 pigs. They had made a fortune raising pigs over the last few years and had long since outgrown their old place. They were looking to buy some land to build a new house. Although the Gu family's property was a bit rundown, the location was great. It was close to the village entrance, making it very accessible. As soon as the Lai sat, it set their eyes on the Gu family's yard. 3 mud-walled rooms and half an acre of vegetable garden, sold for a total of $120. When my mother-in-law heard that number, she burst into tears on the spot. Clinging to the doorframe, she refused to let go, screaming that she would rather die than sell. My father-in-law, squatting in the yard, grunted, "If we don't sell, are we supposed to live on air?" My mother-in-law fell silent, but she cried even harder. On the day of the transaction, as the lice counted out the $120 to my father-in-law, Shi Jizhong happened to walk in from the construction site. Standing at the gate, he stared at that stack of money, his lips trembling for a long time. Finally, he choked out, "Dad, I built this house." Without even looking up, my father-in-law snapped, "So what if you built it? It's in my name. I make the decisions here." With that $120, the Gu family packed up and moved into an abandoned old house deep in the mountains. I actually went to see that old house once, not to gloat or mock them, but because I was with third aunt, picking mushrooms in the mountains. Passing by that place, the old house sat halfway up the hill. The entrance of the courtyard was completely overgrown with weeds. My mother-in-law sat alone on a rock, staring at the ground, utterly lost in thought. I caught a glimpse of her from a distance, then turned around and walked away. Third aunt caught up with me and asked, Wan, seeing your mother-in-law like this, do you really feel okay about it?" It doesn't feel good, but I don't regret it, because I know if I had to do it all over again, I would still do the exact same thing. Junzhou endured working on the construction site for 2 months, but he couldn't hold on any longer. He was exhausted, and worse, utterly humiliated. Everyone on the construction site knew about his scandal, and they all used him for amusement. "Hey, Junzhou, I heard you used to be a school teacher. What did you teach? Did you teach people how to steal someone else's spot?" "Hey, Kuku Jianshin, where's that pretty city wife of yours? I heard she was a real beauty. How did you lose her? What else could it be? She obviously dumped it because he's dirt poor." Their mocking words were like knives, carving into his heart, slice by slice. In his entire life, when had Gu Jianjun ever suffered such humiliation? He had made it to high school. Even though he didn't get into college later, he was still the most educated man in the entire village. He became a local teacher. Although the pay wasn't much, wherever he went, everyone respectfully called him Teacher Gu. He even married me, a city girl with her own apartment, though he only got me through scheming. The whole village still envied him. But now, his teaching job is gone.
I'm gone too. To blow you.
His reputation is completely ruined. He doesn't even have a roof over his head anymore. Gu Jianjun went from being the envy of the village
To their ultimate laughingstock.
By the end of the second month, he left without saying a word to anyone. He completely vanished right from the construction site. My mother-in-law waited at home for 2 whole days, but there was no sign of him. She was frantic with worry, pacing back and forth in panic. On the 3rd day, Gu Jianjun finally returned. He was dead drunk, completely wasted. When my mother-in-law asked him where he had been, he didn't utter a single word. He just collapsed onto the bed and fell fast asleep. A few months passed just like that. One day, after finishing work, I was getting ready to head home to cook, but just as I walked out of the factory gates, I spotted a familiar figure squatting against the wall across the street. It was Gu Xiaomei. When she saw me walk out, she hesitated for a moment and then stood up. She took 2 timid steps toward me, but then stopped in her tracks, as if she didn't dare to come any closer. I looked at her, a wave of mixed emotions washing over me. "Xiaomei? What are you doing squatting over there?" She bit her lip, tears welling up in her eyes. "Sister-in-law. Sister Lin Wan. I came here to thank you." "Thank me for what?" I asked. "Thank you for finding me that job," she said. She lowered her head, her voice cracking with emotion. "The people at the grain depot are really nice to me. They provide me with food and housing, and they always pay my salary on time, without any delay. I can finally support myself now." I fell silent for a moment before asking, "Does your mother know you're here?" "No," she replied. I didn't tell her. "So, what are your plans for the future?" She raised her head, a flicker of uncertainty crossing her eyes, which was instantly replaced by a look of sheer determination. "Sister Lin Wan, I want to study. I don't want to be a temporary worker at the grain depot for the rest of my life. I want to take the entrance exams for vocational school. Once I get in, I can officially transfer my residency to the city." I stared at her, completely taken aback, looking her up and down with newfound respect. A 16-year-old girl, skinny as a rail, but her eyes shone as bright as the stars. Vocational school tuition isn't cheap. I know education is worth it. I saved a little money working at the grain depot. Plus, I secretly saved some allowance. It's enough to cover one semester's tuition. Sister Lin Wan, I didn't come to borrow money from you. I just wanted to say thank you. She pulled an envelope out of her jacket pocket, stuffed it into my hand, and turned and ran. Inside the envelope was 5 yuan, crumpled, and still holding her body heat. Next to it was a note. Written on it in a crooked scrawl was, Sister Lin Lan, this is my first month's salary.
I saved 5 yuan for you.
It's not much, but I'll always remember your kindness. I stood there for a long time, clutching that note. When I got home that night, I showed the note to my mom. Her eyes welled with tears as she read it, and she said, "This girl is nothing like her mother." She really isn't. Half a year later, I had completely moved on from that failed marriage. A new technician arrived at the factory. His surname was Chen, a clean-cut college graduate assigned to our unit. He spoke softly and politely, and you could tell at a glance he was on a completely different level from Gu Jinjun. The way he pursued me was completely different from Zhu Jinjun too. He didn't say sweet, empty words, but he wrote me love letters and would quietly bring me breakfast and help repair my bicycle. My mom said he was honest. My dad said he was a decent, down-to-earth man. I also felt that although he wasn't as slick as Gu Jinjun, he made me feel secure and at peace. Not long after, my company sent me on a business trip. By the time I finished my work, it was already past 3 in the afternoon. I took a long-distance bus to head back. Halfway through the journey, the bus broke down at the foot of a mountain, and the driver said it couldn't be fixed anytime soon. I left them to figure it out on their own. Grabbing my bag, I walked for a while. As soon as I turned the corner, I saw that old family house. It hadn't changed at all since the last time I was here, except for a pile of firewood in the yard and a few scrawny skin and bone chickens. A hunched figure was squatting near the front door, head down, peeling garlic. It was my mother-in-law. Instantly, all those things she used to say came rushing back. Her words echoed in my head, buzzing constantly, every single word stabbing like a needle into my heart. Before I married into the Gu family, my mother had warned me. She said country folks have too many rules. You're a city girl, she told me. You won't survive out there, but I didn't listen. I foolishly believed love could conquer all. I thought Gu Jinjun would protect me. But look what happened. Gu Jinjun didn't even have the guts to let me sit at the table and eat a hot meal. That bowl of cold leftovers he brought me instead. Even now, just thinking about it makes me sick to my stomach. I pulled my gaze away, turned around and started to walk away. But after just a few steps, a voice suddenly called out from behind. Wan Wan! It was Gu Jinjun. With bloodshot eyes, he choked out, Wan Wan, did you come back to see me? I stared at him, a wave of mixed emotions crashing over me. This was the man I had loved with all my heart. The way he used to write me love letters. The way he brought me flowers. I still remembered every single detail, but it was all a lie. Every bit of it was a calculated performance, designed just to scheme against me. I didn't come here to see you. My car broke down, and I was just passing by. Wan Wan, I was wrong. I was so wrong. I can't live without you. I used to think he was pitiful. Now, I just find him pathetic.
不选君，抵御古怪的。
I regret it so much. I'm dying of regret. Wan, please give me another chance. I promise, I'll treat you right this time. My mother-in-law had come out of the house at some point. Hearing this, her lips trembled with rage. You spineless, pathetic boy! I'll beat some sense into you. I ignored her and looked at him. Let me ask you, do you regret scheming against me? Do you regret treating me like a cash cow? Do you regret playing with my feelings? But if you only regret it because your life is miserable now, then we have nothing left to say. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. But I already knew the answer. He didn't regret lying to me. He only regretted getting caught. And he didn't regret using me. He'd only regretted that it didn't work. Have a good life. I turned and walked away without looking back. Not long after, I bought a brand new apartment with an elevator, 3 bedrooms and 2 living areas, with floor-to-ceiling windows that let the bright sunshine stream in all day long. On the day we moved in, my dad stood on the balcony, looking down, smiling from ear to ear. He called out, "Sweetheart, this place is so much better than our old house." My mom chimed in. "Old Lin, bring that new pot over here." This old one is useless. My dad called back and hurried over eagerly to get the pot. Chain Dong smiled beside me and said, "Wife, since it's our first day in our new home, what are we having for dinner tonight?" "Dumplings. My mom made pork and cabbage dumplings. Your absolute favorite." Then I'll have to eat at least 2 whole plates. The whole family gathered around the table and enjoyed a lively, warm, housewarming meal. My dad had a few drinks, his face flushing a warm red, and he started getting quite chatty. Sweetheart, if you hadn't escaped from the Goo family back then, would we be living like this today? I thought about it, popped a dumpling into my mouth, and mumbled. Escaping was just pure luck. If I hadn't made it, that would have been my fate too. What do you mean? Luck or fate? You survived because you fought for yourself, and my mom was right.